Hello and welcome everybody to Man's Model Moments, and just a day before New Year. Obviously, a couple of days ago, ICM released the 2025 catalogue. Unfortunately, it happened just as I was about to take my mother back home, which is well, it should be about 7-hour round trip. 3.5 hours, 3.5 hours back. Say, a bit of a break as well. Turned out to be 9 hours. It was pretty dreadful. So I kind of had plans of just like maybe I'll do a video in the evening or something, but other people have done videos on the day and stuff, and I thought, no, I'll do a live stream because the video stuff still isn't set up, because obviously, as you can tell with the boxes, we still haven't moved. Should know by the end of the week. Well, we'll know on the 2nd what's happening. Somebody wants us to move on the 3rd. I think that's a really, really bad idea. So it'd probably be the 10th that we're going to move. So, but we'll see. I'll let everybody know. Yes, Ian Ellison, this is indeed live. So just to say, as always, if you've got any questions, any comments, put them in capital letter question or capital letter comments or QQQ, just so it will, draw my attention, especially as I'm going through the catalogue releases. I think I won't be able to actually see the screen, because what I've done is actually I've gone through the catalogue and I've done my usual sort of video presentation order, if you like. So I normally like to go through new toolings, then kits with new parts, new schemes, and I've also put another category which is new boxings and sets, because especially with ICM tend to do a lot of different boxings of the same kit, like with different iterations. We see that a lot in the same way that some other companies do. The way that airfix don't, actually. And it's interesting to see different companies have different approaches to this. But that is very much ICM's mantra, if you like. So in terms of who we have, let's just have a quick look. We had some early comments, but I obviously won't go through those because they're not here. Or if they are, they'll be listed below. Kirchville, Damien, Go For It Painting, John Alec, Stuart, V-Strom 1000, Hobby Time, David Barber, Scott's Models, Julian Hall, Adrian Hook, David, my screen just suddenly went down there. David Markey. If I mentioned people twice, apologies. I'll just read you a whole list of names. So John Christmas. Scott's Model says it's New Year's Eve here. Wow. Okay. I'm taking it you are Antipodean, perhaps? Australasia. Danny Gable. It's alive, yes. Ian Ellison, Celtic West. We have all the usual suspects, which is good, and a few that I don't recognise, which is also good. Dutch Dave, Wayne Welly, and no, nothing missed yet. I've just been saying a few introductory words, going through people joining the chat. Mark Evans just joined. So what I've done a PowerPoint presentation. Because that's kind of, I think, I've never tried it with StreamYard. I didn't intend to do a lot of practice with StreamYard, seeing as that I'll be pretty surprised if this isn't the last stream with StreamYard, because I think the 1 month that I got was from the 2nd, so pretty much the end of this year, it's dead, and I'll be doing something else. So we'll see how it goes. If it messes up, I'll try something else. And thank you, V-Strom, and thank you to everybody. So I'll quickly talk about a couple of other things. So obviously, hit 25k, which is fantastic. Hit that, I think, actually, as I was driving my mum back home. So again, I got a notification while I was driving and played it through because it comes up, you can do it on the audio system. And it was just like, oh, I've hit 25k. I couldn't do anything about it because that was right at the beginning of a 9-hour drive. So it was great to be able to come back home and see that. I always try to get the YouTube at 25,000, take a snapshot of that. I didn't get that, but I do have, I think it's vidIQ, or the other one, TubeBuddy. They send you little like awards. They don't mean anything, but on the number. So I do post that in the community bit on YouTube, but it's really nice, much appreciated. It does mean, I did say, if I get 25,000 subs by, before 2025, I would commit to doing 25 kits in 2025, which is one of those things, a bit like the 24-hour stream. It sounds like a good idea at the beginning. I may live to regret that. So if you are a channel member or a Patreon, come onto the Discord. If you're not on the Discord, there is a pinned comment in YouTube, similar on Discord, I believe. Not similar on Discord, similar on Patreon. Go to Discord. You will have a link there to the Discord. You can come in there. There's actually a post that I put up just before this stream saying, what should I build? Give me suggestions. I can't guarantee that I'm going to build the kits that are presented, because I'm sure there'll probably be more than 25 anyway. I'll have review kits to do and stuff, but at least it will give me, some pointers, some maybe kits I haven't thought of. Obviously, they have to be kits I can get hold of or already have. But other than that, sky's the limit. I'm open to pretty much anything. Novi Strom, it was definitely not 5 kits in January. That would be insane. I mean, I've done some insane things, but that's a bit too insane. So yeah, 25 kits. Yeah, that's more than 2 a month, obviously. So we'll see how that goes. So just yeah, exactly. Get building, Alex. You definitely need to do that. And the other thing is, of course, it is the 12 days of Christmas. So traditionally, the 12 days of Christmas started on Christmas Day, and it was the 12 days thereafter, after which you take all your stuff down and all that kind of thing. So it is still ongoing. And obviously the 6th of January, I believe, is the 12th day of Christmas. That was my ex's birthday, because we always knew by her birthday all the decorations had to be down. Otherwise, it's good bad luck for the rest of the year, unless you keep up, or whatever decorations you don't put away have to stay up all year. That's the superstition, I believe. But anyway, the 12 days of Modelmas is going. So there's a post each day on the community. You can go back, you can vote on previous ones as well. So if you post or repost the YouTube post on social media, any social media platform, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever, and then comment on the post that you've shared it. Obviously, you need to be subscribed to the channel for me to pick that up. And if you're a channel member, that will actually enter more entries into the draw for that particular day, depending on your membership level. So obviously you have more chances to win if you're a member or Patreon, but any subscriber can come in and comment on that. And basically each day I'm giving away something. So there's been various kits, and on the 12th day of Christmas I will be giving away a 3D printer. So a resin 3D printer. It's not brand new, but it's never been used. So it's a Mars printer that an Elegoo Mars printer that I bought. I unboxed it. I never used it, so it's brand new in terms of it's never been used or anything. So that will be the winning 12th day of Christmas thing. You don't have to have voted on or commented on any of the others or shared any of that to be in the final one. You just need to be subbed and comment on that day. What I will probably do is ask the winner to pay postage on that, just because it's a big parcel. Anybody who wins that doesn't want to do that, then I'll just go to the next person drawn out. So I think that's fair enough, right? Because I'll do it anywhere in the world, doesn't matter, but obviously I'll check what the postage will be. So if somebody in Canada wins it and they do the postage, it's going to be $200, and they say, no, I don't want to pay $200. That's fine. We'll do it to the next person on the list. So I want to be upfront about that. You know, it's not just going to be, because I could support giving away stuff and posting things, but big 3D printers halfway across the world, channel's not going to last long for that. Okay. No, Adrian, no 24-hour builds. Not if you want me to build 25 kits in the year. I may come up with other silly things. I'm sure I will come up with more silly things through the year. Probably not going to be a 24-hour build. I'll let you know that in advance, right? It was a pledge of my 25K manifesto. Absolutely. If it was, you could just not keep it. No, I'm not. Fortunately, I'm not a career politician, so I actually do try to keep my word. Okay. Well, my stash is a lot more than 25 max, so I don't know what Pablo is barking at, but excuse him in the background. Oh, whatever it is seems to have gone. Okie dokie. Right. Let's get on to ICM's releases for 2025. So they dropped the catalog, as I say, a couple of days ago. It's in PDF. It's on their website. You can go and look at it. So, I mean, I think the very first comment on here was that they've seen it already from John Duke, this one. It's like, yeah, fine. You don't have to, I'm not forcing you to watch this. You know, as other people have done videos, I just thought it would be a nice thing for us to go through together. And I also want to talk about some of the things, because I think there was another comment early on before the stream from Damien saying they weren't impressed with it. Only 2 kits that interest them. And I want to kind of put a bit of context on that as well, because one of the things I saw at Telford was Valeria's speech. She invited some people. She gave a speech which was fairly private and shed quite a lot of light onto what's been going on in ICM over the past year and how that's affected some of the release schedule and why I think this catalog is like it is. TLDR, it's Russia being, you know, horrible. There's no other way to put it, is there? So let me see if I can actually present. I'm not sure how I present a slideshow. Slides and PDFs. You have no slides. I could do PowerPoint or PDF. Yes, that's fine. Oh. Apparently I have to upload it. I didn't know that. I should have probably practiced this before. Oh, I can't do it while it's in use, so let's close that. There's nothing like being prepared, is there? And this is nothing like being prepared. Oh, I see. It opens up another little bit in StreamYard. Okay. That's just chugging away, processing at the moment. I should probably have done that before I started going through all of that, because that could have been a segue then into it. But okay, let me talk a little bit about the what Valeria said. So ICM had to go through a 3-month hiatus in 2024 due to the ongoing Russian attacks. And essentially, if you think about it, injection molding equipment, injection molding operators, even more so, are pretty strategic assets, let's call them that, in the current conflict. Why? Drones. So obviously drones have lightweight components. Injection molded plastic is quite good for some of the core components and things like the rotor blades, things like that. So actually, they had a loss of personnel through the year, 3 people, I believe, some of whom went to frontline drone production, some of whom went to the front line, literally, because ICM as a private company is not exempt from the draft. So basically, you know, there's a lot of volunteers, obviously, but then also you can be called to go and fight for your country, and rightfully so, right? And a lot of people, well, I think everybody at ICM, she said, has a relative or a friend that is currently serving in the front lines. So the war is having a direct impact on them. So you'll have noticed some of the releases, like the Burma Jeep, didn't happen last year. They did some unannounced releases, like the King Tiger, the Steel Cats, the King Tiger, and the Panther together, which we haven't seen for a long time. And actually, quite nice kits. And that's because they needed to plug the design holes in their schedule because of that personnel shortage with other things in their catalog that they could do quickly. They already had, designed, etc. Imprinting things on 3D, as we all know, in injection molding is much faster than 3D designing, creating tools, and all the rest of it. So that is some of the background and why I think that we're seeing this result rather than, like 10 really hot releases like they were showing at the beginning of last year. So I think you should have that in mind, because comparing them, they're still producing more and more hot kits than the likes of Revell, who aren't at war, who are in a much more economically stable country. So, people just look at Catalogue release and, well, it's not very good. Well, you're not at war, are you? So anyway, let me add this to the stage. Oh, that's nice. I can do it and still be here. That's good, because then I can see all the comments. Because if I make it just the Catalogue, if I'm flipping between it, then I can't see what you guys are saying. So please do comment if you ever see anything here that you think, oh, I want to make a comment on that, or I have a question for Alex on that. So 2025 Catalogue, obviously. And to start with, thank you, Pablo, I'll be looking at new toolings. So these are the things that are completely new. And some of these obviously were shown last year, either as releases for 2024 or forward views for 2025. So the first of those is the 1/32 scale HS123A1. That's the late version of it. So 100% new molds. Obviously, this is a kind of interwar aircraft. It's kind of like, I guess, the Bristol Bulldog from Airfix, but the other end of it was a bit later, actually served in World War II as well. Also served, I believe, in the Spanish Civil War. So it was one of those late 30s, pre to early war fighters in that biplane configuration, but the much later sort of biplane configuration, if we can say it like that. So less rigging, more structural integrity, kind of, those big struts in that. 32nd scale, it's going to be comparable to the Gladiator, right? And was it the CR42, the Falco? No worries, Julian. Feeding time always comes first. And it wasn't personal, Damien. I wasn't, trying to single you out. So, absolutely, from a personal perspective, there's always, what can I say, disappointments or rejoicing, depending what people release. I still think they've got a good round of releases, and ICM aren't really. If I was thinking about ICM as a company, I wouldn't say naturally they're a 1/72 scale company. I think that's a fairly fair thing to say. They do have 1/72 scale kits. I don't think it's their natural scale. I would say 1/35th, 1/32nd, 1/48th, 1/32nd for aircraft, 1/35th, 1/24th for vehicles and cars. That seems to be their niche, if you like. And they do spill over to other scales, of course. But I would say that's the majority. That's the core of their business. So this very much fits into those kind of aircraft that I just mentioned, right? So not sure what schemes it'll come with. Obviously, I mean, this will probably be as Airfix would call it, the A scheme. which looks like RLM 65 on the underside and possibly white vice on the upper surfaces with yellow identification. HS123 isn't something that I really. I'm not a big fan of late 1930s, that sort of end of the Golden Wings era aircraft. I think it's quite ugly in a lot of ways with that canopy kind of, well, that hood, I suppose, at the back of the cockpit. But I know some people will really like this. So I think that's all I have to say about that. This, however, is right up my alley. And obviously they did show this. They showed it in I think it's the B1 version they showed, which will come later. This is the HS129. This is obviously powered by 2 Nomron engines. So they captured a whole bunch of French engines and thought, if you can use those, that'd be great. So they tried to cram them into all sorts of designs. This one obviously was an anti-tank aircraft, or we call it close support aircraft now, ground attack, armed with cannon, machine gun, and of course they bolted big guns to the bottom of it. This one looks like it might be the 50mm. They also did a 37mm, which I think was more successful, and a 75mm experimental one, which, just like on the Ju-88, wasn't much cop. Too big, too much recoil, not enough shells, that kind of thing. I love this camo scheme. This RLM 79 and RLM 80. What do you call it? Waffle scheme? We'll call it waffle scheme. It's kind of squiggly. Really like that. And the HS129 did get a lot of interesting camouflage schemes because it was used in all sorts of theatres. This one, obviously, a desert theatre. And I really like this. So I was really looking forward to it when it was announced last year as a 2025 release. So it's great to see that has remained in the catalogue. And I'll definitely get that one. I think the main one that people used to do in 48 scale for this aircraft is the old Eschi one, which wasn't very good at all. I'm sure other people have done it as well, but sort of in the price range I was looking for at the time, that was the kind of main contender. It's odd. It's got this really weird sort of triangular trapezoidal fuselage. It's and the cockpit, I mean, it was cramped as hell. So yeah, it looks absolutely fantastic. All right. Ugly, it's a beauty. Yes. Well, we all have our particular what's it? Preferences. That's the thing. Oh, I'm just going to try another layout. Oh, yes, I like that one better. So I just saw that one and thought, I'll try it. That way you can mainly see the presentation. Right, let's move on. This, of course, is like the main event. And I think for any other model company, 2 really big releases during the year is pretty good. This is definitely one of the big ones. I mean, for me, the HS129 is kind of the other one. But this is the Hampton, of course. And one of the things I want to say straight away out of this is I think this box art is beautiful. I think that's like photorealistic painting. Whoever does their box art there, I think this is stunning. Yeah. So I don't know if I can claim credit for it, but if I have any association in any small connection to actually getting this committed to, let's say, from ICM, then I am very grateful, and I think it's great that we are getting a 148 scale Hampton. I mean, credit isn't needed. It's just it's nice to have that feeling that if that was the case, that the community kind of benefited from that. I think that's great. But I do love this box art. I think that is a really, really nice picture. And it looks even better if you look at it in close up. I would recommend downloading the catalogue, having a look at this, because you can zoom in. It is really lovely. and it is a weird aircraft as well. So this with the HS129, you know, there's a couple of real oddballs there. So I think this looks absolutely great. I think I will probably get 2 of these, at least. One of them will come a bit later. I'll show you that soon. So I think those are the 2, you know, this obviously is the pinnacle. I think the 129 is close for me. But yeah, a couple of really nice schemes there. A couple more. So ICM, I don't think do themselves enough credit sometimes. So this is the Black Hawk crew in 48 scale. So these are brand new sculpts, right? But they just put them as new in their catalog rather than 100% new molds. I think it's because they're sculpted. I don't know what it is, but these are brand new, right? Obviously, they go with the Black Hawk, which most people will not have seen either yet. They don't include it as new in the catalog, the Black Hawk, because officially it was released in December. Now, I haven't had a review sample of it yet. It's probably, I don't even know if it's left Ukraine. But I doubt anybody's got it in you know, on their shelves at the moment. I doubt many people have actually received it. So again, that will be kind of a new one for 2025, but ICM aren't classing it as that. This crew is. So existing releases do not have this. So again, that'll be nice. And it comes in nicely with some of the stuff that they're doing later, which we'll come to. In that same vein, they've also got the B-26 Marauder US crew. Now, they do have US bomber crew already and ground crew. This is a separate set. So again, this is new. So these are brand new sculpts. And ICM figures, if you haven't ever seen them or ever bought them, they are, I would say, some of the best ever. We then have 3 new molds. I can't remember if these were actually, or any of these were mentioned last year, but they did release the M8A1 mat in 35th and 48 scale, I believe, last year. This year, they're also releasing it in 72nd scale and also doing a 48th and 72nd scale Marston mat. So these are kind of those things that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, that's really boring and stuff, but actually really, really useful. So this was used in all kinds of scenarios, not only as landing mat, but Marston mats were often used on vehicles as well, like sections of Marston mat. So this again, because of the scale, 48th and 72nd, really, really useful for dioramas. So, you know, they might not be terribly, you know, like super interesting. Oh, it's like a new Jaguar or something. But on the other hand, it's really, really useful and probably a lot more profitable than something like that. There's a whole plethora, and I think accessories are much overlooked in a lot of areas. So that's why I put them all 3 together. I didn't think they had really warranted 3 slides for landing mats, but they've got a good selection now over a good selection of scales, so that's good. What is going to be slightly more complex, and it's still going to be small, but is the DSHKM. It's a big, it's like 12.5mm machine gun, Russian machine gun. So big, chunky old thing. So brand new, again, accessory. And it can be used in a lot of different areas, this one, as we'll see when we go through. Another accessory set, 35th scale Dragon's Teeth, anti-tank obstacles. So a lot of these things, you know, people have made themselves or buy third party or say 3D print. But injection molding is always going to be the cheapest, easiest way of getting these. Plus, it has the advantage of you can easily weather this injection molded plastic, especially ICM's plastic. So again, I think this is another nice little one. So that's it for brand new kits, new tooling. So, you know, and people, I'm sure a lot of people look at this and think, well, that's not a lot. But you've got 3 kits there, all reasonable size, because the 32nd scale HS120 is it 3, 126? I can never remember. The biplane, you know, it's a 32nd scale aircraft, so it's going to come up at a fair chunk. You've got the Hampton and you've got the 129 there. As we'll see, though, there's a lot more coming when we look at this kits with new parts. And the first of which is the Sikorsky Sky Crane. So these obviously have been released before, but they did the military version, and I think it was the G. I can't, forgive me if I'm wrong, but this is the E. The version previously was different. So obviously there's a new parts for the E, which is obviously the more civilian version, I guess. And they have that both with the pod on the right-hand side there and without. I mean, this is a stark contrast from the scheme of the military one, which is basically olive drab, whereas this is like orange green with black and white rotors. It's like you couldn't get more visible than that, could you? So obviously utilizing the main components from the Sikorsky previously, and then just adding those extra parts for the different version. So then we have the Dornier 217K1. Now ICM released the Dornier in a couple of iterations before. These are the like really late war ones where they completely redesigned the front of the fuselage, and they also used different engines. So it had inline engines in some of the versions. It had radial engines in some of the versions. This is one of the later radial engine versions with a great big greenhouse front canopy. I think it had broadly the same wings. Memory serves me right. But the fuselage was obviously completely different. So this is quite nice to see. I've done one of these in 72nd scale from Teleri. So 48 scale would be interesting. So this is quite an interesting one for me. Obviously, not entirely new, but there's some substantial new components in there. So again, looking at it as an overall release of what they're doing, you know, again, other companies will crow a lot about this and count, you know, something with new is a bit more new than it is. And in that same vein, they also go with the M1, which looks very similar in many ways to the K1. But again, there's some other differences in this. It has completely different. Obviously, this has liquid cooled rather than radial engines. See the main obvious difference there. So again, those two German bombers, depending on which one you prefer the look of, because obviously it's a very different look between the radial engines of the K1 and I can't remember the word for it now. I used it a second ago, but basically the liquid cooled engines of the M1. So you have both those options here. 48 scale. This is not an insubstantial aircraft either. So we then have this. Now I put this in new parts, but of course this is completely new to us. This is the B1 version of the HS129, and this is the picture that they showed us that would be in the 2025 catalogue originally. So I was interested actually that they show the other one as the main one, and then the B1, which is the B2, and then the B1 as the kind of additional one. So basically, we're getting two versions of the HS129, two brand new versions of the HS129, which is great. And this is obviously the 37mm cannon on the B1. And again, I have to say, great box art on these. And yes, Wayne, there is very little masking to be done on these. You're absolutely right. We then have this, which is quite interesting. So obviously they have the Bronco already in their collection. This has new parts to make the NOGS version, which also has a really, really nice camo scheme. So this, for me, is quite interesting because I've not done the ICM Bronco. So this, I believe, is 48 scale. Let me just move myself so I can Yes, that's the 48. It's the 48 scale kit. So this in that US Marines scheme there, that winter scheme, I think that looks pretty good. So I think of the 25 kits in 2025, I think that will definitely be one of them. Yeah, Mario, you're absolutely right. ICM. Well, I think they always do. I don't think there's any kits that the aircraft that don't have the masking guide as part of the instructions, and it is very accurate. So I used it on the Marauder. I used it on the 1/72nd scale Focke-Wulf 189C, which has even less masking than the HS-129, and of course is the aircraft that lost out that contract from the RLM to build a ground support aircraft. And I don't think I'd have wanted to fly either of them. But this, however, the Bronco, kind of the opposite side of visibility, because the visibility in the Bronco is excellent. And the Bronco isn't an aircraft that I've kind of really thought about before in any particular way. But this looks pretty nice, I must say. So this one is, I think I will probably put some effort into, because that, again, I'm a sucker for these kind of camouflage schemes. We then have 3 versions. Again, they only put new parts on one, but all of these have new parts because they are all basically the F version. Even though, obviously, the G was basically an F with standardized equipment. So, yeah, the one that I'm covering up is the F. Then we have the Marauder Mark III, which was the F for RAF South Africa. And then the G was the US, as it was here, France, and 150, I believe, were made. And it was just with standardized equipment, because before then that had from all over. It's amazing what a different kind of look it gives it, though. You know, being a British finish, or you know, compared to the one. But anyway, those are all new parts with the obviously 2024 Marauder, and so that is quite nice as well. Again, I mentioned the Black Hawk that we will be having very shortly, and I'll be featuring on the channel when it comes in. So it's not down as a new kit in here, but we do have 2 new versions of it. So we have the UH-60A, which is the standard US military transport. So not the special forces version with the blobby nose and all the other bits, just the standard Black Hawk. And then a 60A for the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, which I didn't realize they had Black Hawks. But so both of those are pretty interesting. I mean, the Ukrainian one is an interesting color scheme. I mean, that I don't think I've ever. It doesn't make it look like a Black Hawk somehow for me. Yeah, Pablo does have his opinions. He can keep them to himself, though. So obviously, new parts in those for a different version of the helicopter. And again, we've not actually seen the physical helicopter yet. So again, that will all be new in 2025 for us. We then also have this, which is the Operation Gothic Serpent kit, which obviously has those brand new Black Hawk crew personnel with the standard, the prior, or at least a version of the Black Hawk that was used in Operation Gothic Serpent, because it's not exactly the same as the one that's already been released, because that has the great big long refueling probe and stuff. This one doesn't. So I thought this was nice, because everybody, as soon as they saw the Black Hawk, everybody was talking about Black Hawk down, you know, and it was really great to do a diorama stuff. Well, ICM are very good at providing diorama materials, I think, whether that be in all the accessories, in their figures, or in the sets that they do. And this is exactly that. It's a kind of set just made for that. This is the other version of the Hampton that I think I will be building. So I said I think I'll probably get at least 2. This will be the second one, because the first one, those RAF colors, the Hampton was used early on as an RF bomber, but then quickly went into torpedo bombers. It's actually my best man's, I think it was uncle, was a Hampton pilot, and he was actually, I believe, shot down on a torpedo run in Norway. So kind of has a semi-personal connection for me, the Hampton as well. So the torpedo version, I think, of the flying suitcase is very different, just in terms of, you know, having torpedo and that the RAF sea scheme, temperate ocean scheme, or whatever it was called, does just kind of cast a different light on it. It's amazing how that can change an aircraft. And of course, it does have different parts, slightly to the day bomber as it was. So that looks really nice. And again, yeah, as the Kraut just said, really, really nice box art. And that goes for the majority, I think. I don't think I've seen any ICM kits here that don't have really nice box art. I mean, this is like, what's the guy's name? Robert somebody does the aviation artist. It's that level, you know, it really is. It's beautiful. You know, the subtle reflection of this showing that it's not quite matte paint, and just really, really good. We then have these, and again, Valeria did mention these next couple of kits when she was giving her talk at Telford. The first is a MiG-29 with JDAM ERs, the extended range JDAMs. So these are basically representing the current standard, if you like, of Ukrainian military equipment. So a lot of ex-Soviet stuff with, you know, NATO rounds, effectively. So obviously they have new parts for all of the ordnance, but obviously they do have the old MiG-29. The old MiG-29 is not the easiest of kits, but obviously the new parts were pretty good. And then the other one, of course, the F-16 AM with the PAC-14. So ICM do not have an F-16, so this is somebody else's F-16. I don't know whose F-16 it will be, but they will obviously be doing indigenous toolings for all of the PAC-14, all of the ordnance on this, which is currently being used by the Ukraine. And obviously F-16s have featured a lot. They asked for them for a long time. They've had them. They've been critical in using in defending from drones and air attacks. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Yeah, it could be from Revell. I mean, Revell was my first choice, but the F-16 I don't think is particularly noted in their inventory. I know they got one which is really old, so don't know. We'll see. Next is the 251-1, but this is the which they've done a lot of. They've always been the AUS A previously, so this is the AUS B. Not a huge difference, but again, has new parts for that. And ICM do a lot of transport vehicles in 35th scale for allies and Axis forces. So this is typical ICM. It uses, again, majority of an existing kit, but they're expanding it to a new version with additional pieces. So also, I do really like the camo scheme here. Obviously, it's just, you know, washable Weiss paint going over the probably Schwarzgrau underneath, but it still looks cool. Excuse me as well if I sound a little nasal. I think Maria brought more than just Christmas gifts back with her from Barcelona. I think there may have been a little virus riding her immune system as well. Then we have the ZIL 131 with a DSH-KM. Now, if you remember, the new tool bit was 1/35th scale, so I presume they would have. Well, who knows whether this is new or something else, but I think it is because they already have the ZIL. The ZIL is an old, I believe it's a Neo Omega or some similar kit. They're not that nice. They're certainly not up to ICM's current standard. And it's usually more prevalent when they put new pieces in, because you can tell the difference between the new stuff and the old, really not ICM kit pieces. So I hope it's not the Spanish flu, but thanks, Mario. Then we have this, which again is only put as new in the catalogue, but does include new parts, because obviously this is the Panhard, the French armoured car that they already have, which is a really nice kit. But it's obviously got the funky, literally it's funk, it's said, but that weird aerial that also the 221 had, you know, the old Matchbox kit of it had this great big chunky aerial sported by these massive things. I mean, the most heavy aerial that you could possibly think of, but obviously Armored Command vehicle, and it looks pretty good. I haven't built this kit again, though I've seen it built. I've seen other people build it, and they all say it's a really nice kit. So I think this is a good opportunity to get it, because I quite like the looks of that. So it would also go with the theme of a diorama. So then again, staying with the theme of command, but going over to the Allied side, we have Monty's Office Caravan. Now, obviously, ICM did release the figure set of Monty and his senior staff last year. So this is kind of rounding out that with the caravan itself. So they already obviously have the truck on which this is based. So this is just the new parts to make it Monty's Caravan rather than a standard. Then we have the 1/35th scale version of that 72nd kit we saw before. So again, a ZIL 131 with that brand new DSHK. So obviously this is in the Armed Forces of Ukraine. It goes in with the other vehicles they've done, like the Kozak and various other bits and bobs that they've done, and a lot of the figure sets. So again, fits very much in that theme. This is one of the things that they've been hunting drones with as well, so it kind of goes in the current modern theme. You fancy doing a current diorama, this kind of puts you straight up. We then have the Model A. I think this is 24th scale. Again, I'll just shift myself over. Yeah, 24th scale. But this is done as a gangster car. So, which is quite cool. You've got the Thompson submachine guns, you know, a couple of what look to be 1911s and a bag of swag and that scheme. So I think that's quite a nice little sort of refresh to an existing kit. So I quite like that. In the same vein, we also have the same kit, but this time in German service. So again, a little bit of a different twist on the same vehicle. Obviously, different type of, I think it's got a different type of canvas canopy. Yeah, slightly different in terms of the windscreen and stuff, probably to German specifications or whatever. And obviously the interior won't be as luxurious as the gangster car or the original. Excuse me. So, as you just saw as I flipped over to it, the next is new schemes. So some of these are new, well, mostly new decal schemes, obviously new paint schemes. Not that many of these, and then I'll go on to the kind of new sets that they do, new boxings. So the first of which, of course, is that brand new HS123. So that we saw it in that sort of hellblau and sort of white scheme earlier. So these are obviously, it's the same brand new kit. It's just these have different markings on them. So one is the sort of standard early Luftwaffe colors, and then the other one is the Legion Condor which obviously operated in the Spanish Civil War. So two nice schemes there. I would probably go for one of these rather than the other scheme myself. I'd probably go for this, the 3 top color splinter camo single and the side color on the right here, rather than the Legion Condor, just my personal preference. But again, 3 kits, all the same kit, different versions of it, and ICM are quite good at doing this, at releasing kit with specific different versions all at once, rather than, or not necessarily all at once, but consecutively, so that you can do that. Then we have some interesting takes on some slightly older kits. I mean, the JU88 is still quite a modern kit for ICM. It's a really nice kit, actually. It comes with complete engines and stuff. But this is a captured USAF or RAF bomber. So puts a little bit of, and again, just make it somehow look different. I don't know why. But a little bit of a different spin on an existing kit. So I think that's quite neat. And then the other one, again, I will probably do this because it looks really nice. That scheme is the Beaufort Mark 1A. That's a really nice scheme on that one there. And again, the box art really sells it for me there, I think. I just think it looks very nice. So obviously I've done the South African one, which I will publish in 2025, I promise you. And that is kind of the complete opposite in terms of how it looks. So yeah, nice one for me, that one, I think. Next, we have not a kit, which is why I put it in new schemes, but all of the Ukrainian decals in 35th scale for the military vehicles of the Ukrainian army. So this, I think, is great if you've got, like, if you're doing a Ukrainian diorama and have, other kits in your stash or want to do one, and you don't have the decals. Well, this, they've already released this, obviously, in some of their kits, but this kind of goes and has a whole bunch out. So you've got 468 chevrons, 56 patches, and 34 shoulder straps. So if you've got some figures and got some vehicles and want to make them Ukrainian to put them in diorama stuff, that really has you set, I think, without a need to actually buy, a kit that you might not, you might duplicate it or something. That's pretty good. So this one is, again, 35th scale, just to show you that there. So this is the box truck. And obviously they've released this before, but this time in obviously Ukrainian scheme with this. Well, I think it's rather odd digital camouflage. These odd little patches of this very yellow ochre color. This kind of rust brown and black. I don't know, maybe it works, but not against that white. I don't think it works very well against the snow. But yeah, if you're looking at a diorama, these kind of vehicles, are really good. So if that's your thing, you got it now. So those are new schemes, purely new schemes. Now I'm looking at just new boxings. So new boxings is done in several different ways, and you'll see that as we go through. So the first one is the existing B-26. This is Conquerors of Europe Sky. I presume this will be a couple of B-26s. Kind of looks like that on that. It could also be a B-26 and something else, like two B-26s, but maybe one a Marauder, one an Invader. Don't know. We'll have to see what it actually looks like. This is obviously a placeholder photo rather than any particular art or anything. So, but I see them pretty good at doing this. They do this quite a lot in various sets. They did In the Skies of China, for instance, that had 2 fighters and the bomber Sally. Was it Sally Bomber? Yeah, the bomber with the greenhouse on the back that they also did the 48 scale version of. and they're usually obviously cheaper than buying the individual kits. So there's that one to start. But then I have the other type of set that ICM do, and that is an existing kit with like personnel or equipment or something else. And that's what this one is. So this is the airfield of the American Bomber Group. So I expect this will have all the airfield equipment that they've previously released, maybe the US bomber crew and also the and service crew, and also the Marauder crew that is the new one this year. So nice example as well. That's a really good photo, I think, really good period photo to have on that. But again, the exact contents of it, we'll have to wait and see. But again, if it's something that you want to do and you think, I want to make a diorama of this, this is basically the diorama, in a box. You just have to add the actual base itself. This one is something that was released last year as a set with the ZIL. This is 72nd scale. This is the new part. The ZIL is obviously the old, and here they've just released the box trailer by itself. So this is a new boxing. It's not a new kit. So they did the kit last year, but this time you can get it just the box trailer by itself. Again, 72nd scale. If you're into the 72nd scale sort of diorama stuff, it's a box trailer. I'm not going to say much more about that. Then we have 3 entries which are quite interesting, and I expect, as somebody said, with the F-16, I'm not sure about. Revell is possible. Kind of hoping it isn't, because there are better F-16s around, I think. But this is the Marder 1A3, and obviously the Ukraine are being gifted various different vehicles. This is obviously the Revell. Well, I expect it's almost certainly going to be the 172nd Revell kit, which I think was about 2000, something like that, when they were doing good armor. So it'll all depend on how those tracks are, because if they're those stupid heat and bend ones, I won't be happy. So yeah, again, and it'll be with the Ukrainian markings that they've done, like they did with the Leopard. So that's an interesting one, I think. And then we have 2 Bradleys. We have the M2 Bradley, and we have the M3 Bradley. And again, I expect these will both be based on the Revell Bradley. They did do an M2 and M3 version. They did an M2/M3 version, which I think is about 2005, if I recall correctly. So, and again, I expect to see these with Ukrainian markings as well at some point, if they're not included in these sets, because of course Bradleys have been around quite a lot and we've seen them quite prominently taking down T-72s and all kinds of stuff over in the Ukraine. We then have 2, like a boxing of 2 existing kits. The new Flak 38 that came out back in November, I think, October, November, and one of their trucks. I'm not exactly sure what they are. I'm sure some of you will be identifying the German truck from the rear. I don't have that, and I don't know from the from the title there which it is either. So, but it's a flatbed truck mounted Flak 38, which I think was a very common occurrence, a common mounting. For close-in air defense became very, very ubiquitous as close air defense through the war. So I think this is a good one. And then we have the Goulash Cannon, which I did an unboxing of back in, must be halfway through the year, last year. And then this time with the Cooks that have just come out recently. So again, nice little set there. As I've said before, these would be ideal for dioramas, and this is again the diorama in the box. To go with that that kit with new parts of Monty's Caravan, we also have that together with his staff, which was the kit that was released this year, back in June, I think, June, July. The figure kit was, we did see it's a pretty good likeness for Monty. So again, if you're fancying an 8th Army sort of diorama, this is kind of right up your street. This is an interesting boxing for me because I've not done any ICM ships. I've done some of the subs, but this is the Kaiser's Steel Fist, and I think this is a boxing of the 4 battleships, World War One battleships that they do. Don't know what scale they are. It doesn't, I don't think, say on in the catalogue. I'm sure I could go and have a look as you could. But this is interesting, depending on the price, getting 4 related kits in one go. This is interesting. I think World War One, that sort of dreadnought kind of onward era, is sort of an interesting period. So I could be tempted, and I'm not a ship modeler, so we'll have to see. I'll have to keep my eye on those, see what that looks like. And then we have what ICM call sets, new sets. So, I mean, some of you might think, well, some of these are sets, right? But they all come in one box, those. These sets are generally a bit larger. And this is what ICM calls them. So I'm just going by what ICM calls them. So, and these are all obviously existing kits, but you get 3 kits in a box, basically. It's a much bigger box, but you get 3 kits. So these are self-propelled AA guns of the Wehrmacht. A couple of these, a couple of years old, and then obviously the Multier here with the Flak 38. Flak 38 is obviously just come up, so it came out. Thank you, David. 1/700 scale for the ships, and thank you, John, for the knowledge that truck that the Flak 38 was mounted on before was a Ford. So yeah, it's a nice little trio. And again, if you're partial to dioramas, having an anti-aircraft vehicle in your diorama for World War II Germany is pretty much mandatory because they needed it. They did not have air superiority for a great portion of the latter part of the war. We then have fire trucks of the Ukraine. These again, 35th scale. I should just move myself out of the way so you can see there. 35 at the front means 35th scale for ICM kits. So a couple of fire engines there. They do these kits separately, but that's quite a nice, very different, obviously, stylistic choices in the designers on these 2 cabs. But yeah, that's pretty good. Then we have, obviously, Studebaker was released last year in various different formats, and this kind of encompasses those here. So you've got the gas truck, you've got the open bed, and you've got the covered bed as a trio there. And again, if you're doing dioramas, this is quite a nice way to pick up some of those kits and use those. We come to vehicles of the Africa Corps. We've got a truck and a couple of light vehicles, different light vehicles there. Then we have one just simply called Miracle on the Marne. So don't know what that's going to encompass, but generally, ICM sets that do figures, like they had one for Gallipoli this year, consist of a couple of sets of figures of the opposing forces with a sort of cardboard printed diorama background for them. So I expect this will be something similar, but quite what, we'll have to wait and see till a little bit later. We then have an adaptation of the Hummer kit that they released still this year, so 2024, with obviously that new, I mean, you can see how big it is there compared to a person, that massive 12.5 millimeter Russian machine gun, Soviet really, and then a Ukrainian soldier with a manpad, just entitled Drone Hunters. Again, we'll have to see what comes out. I expect there'll be about 4 or 5 figures in this with their existing Hummer kit. I'm just trying to look at that. Looks to be closed cab but open back. So I expect there'll be some new parts in for that. So although it's damaged new sets, I would really say it's probably new parts, but we'll see. Then we have this, which is quite a quirky one. This goes to the quirky end of ICM. Various Tin Lizzies. So you've got 3 very different iterations of one of the earliest cars, which, you know, fire engine version, like a closed cab, like little cargo one, and a personal one, which is, I think this is, you know, this is quite interesting. It's kind of one of those things that you think, yeah, this could be good for a break from what you're doing regularly. You know, these are all 24th scale as well, so they're not going to be that fiddly. You know, even though cars back then were quite small, you know, these at least will have decent sized pieces, even the small ones. So, but yeah, I mean, they are definitely not going to be everybody's cup of tea, Wayne. But if you did fancy a bit of a break, or you're interested in this period, then yeah, this is a good set. Now, I mentioned before when I talked about the HS123, the Falco, CR42, and of course the Gladiator, which you have here. Well, here you have them as a set called the Battle of Malta. So obviously looking at faith, hope, and charity, defending the island from Italian and German assault. So that's quite a nice little pairing. And obviously, those 3 gladiators became extremely famous. Only one of them survived, and part of it is still in a museum there. And the CR42, they always have lovely camouflage schemes on these. I prefer that in terms of how it will look than the Gladiator, even though I suppose I should really support the Gladiator nationally. But quite a nice little duo that. And that closes us out for the catalogue. Now, obviously, there's a lot of catalogue stuff which is there from prior years. Yes, I thought so. I think it's only the fuselage, though, isn't it? It doesn't have the wings or something. I was researching this a while ago. There's a lot of controversy around that aircraft, as I'm sure you will probably be able to tell us all. So that's it from the catalogue. So, as I say, it's some people think, well, I think some people will look at it and say, oh, that's very disappointing. You know, there isn't the volume. I don't see the Burma Jeep, for instance. You know, that seems to have disappeared. And yes, you're right, it absolutely has. But I said some of that is because they're in an ongoing invasion, and that has had a direct impact on the company. I don't think it's a bad set of releases. Even with that aside, I think it's probably that just ICM have set the bar so high, people's expectations have also gone that high, without thinking, oh, they're giving us a 148 scale Hampton, they're giving us a brand new HS 129 and an HS 126. So HS 126 or 123, whatever it was, the biplane. Call it the biplane Henschel, then I can't go wrong, right? So yeah, for me, it's I would say it's a solid release without being. I think last year, looking at it, although I know some people looked at it, it was like, oh, there's nothing for me. It depends how you're looking at a release as well. So, you know, if you are looking at it just with those eyes of there's nothing for me, it's like, well, some companies are going to be good for you, some companies are going to be bad for you. You know, if you're looking at this 72nd Armour, Tamiya is a crap company. They don't do it. So, you know, does that mean their releases are bad? I don't think so. And I think it's the same for ICM, right? They are not known for a lot of 1/72 scale releases. They tend to be more 148th, 132nd, 35th, and 124th. And we'll see. We'll see. I think what they've done is done something that is achievable. I think maybe last year they overreached a little bit without scaling in the effects of the escalating. It's just continuing in the same grind, isn't it? But the conflict. And I think this time they've looked at how can they make the most of their existing catalog by adding some things to it, which is really what most model companies do, right? If you think about Airfix's releases last year, there were some new things, and then there were a lot of things with new decals or new parts. You know, the Blenheim, not the Blenheim. What was it? The Blenheim? No, it's the Beaufort. In 72nd scale, they did a different version. So just a couple of new parts and new decal scheme. They do other things as a new decal scheme. You know, so I think if you judge them on the same scale as other kit manufacturers like Revell, like Airfix, it's still a good set of releases, right? That 48 scale Hampton, you know, if they just do that and the HS129, I'm going to be happy from a personal point of view. And I think a lot of people feel that way. Casting that a little bit wider, you know, without that narrow blinker of what I like, there's some of the nice things in there. I mean, the new versions of the Dornier 217 actually for me are quite good. I'm looking forward to those. You've got, what would I say we don't have much of? I mean, probably the cars suffered most, I think, there. I mean, you are getting some new bits, but not in the same way that you had like last year. But you can't get everything every single year, right? So, yeah, I still think it's a decent release. Again, I think they have set the expectations of the model world very high. I don't think it's fair to judge them on not being able to maintain that standard all the way indefinitely, you know, more than other companies, considering that they have many more pressures than other companies. So yeah, and they're still continuing to supply all the other kits that they make, you know. So I think they're doing a better job than many companies that don't have any of those pressures. So yeah, I think absolutely. Just imagine. I mean, hopefully 2025, fingers crossed, is the year that the conflict is resolved, and that you know, things can start to go back to normal for them. I mean, we've seen some horrific things happening there and some insane politics happening. So let's just, you know, fingers crossed and hope for 2025 being more of a year of peace than 2024 was. So if you've got any questions, any comments, any other pieces that you want to put in, please put them in the comments. So why didn't Airfix issue a new Hampton? I mean, good question, right? I mean, everybody has the opportunity. I still think Airfix might do a a new 172nd scale one. We'll see, though. You've got to think that a lot of companies do their releases 2-3 years in advance in terms of the toolings and things, because it takes a long time to do the research, to do the, you know, the rendering and the actual, you know, the CAD design from any scans and stuff, all that kind of thing. Now, there aren't any intact Hampton examples around. There's one being restored at the moment. ICM have worked with them in terms of getting all the blueprints and, you know, all of the information from that restoration. So, but they've done that very quickly, and because they've got everything in house, they can turn things around quickly. Airfix couldn't do that because, one, they're constrained by Hornby, so they have to submit plans again in advance. So, you know, it's difficult. It's difficult, and it's not I mean, we would have loved to have seen Airfix do New Hampton. If they did one, I still think it would have been more 72nd scale to replace the old one. My main disappointment last year was, not my main disappointment, but one of the disappointments I had with Airfix last year is they re-released the old Hampton, which is not a good kit, rather than do a new tool of the Hampton, as they have done with the Mosquito, and they did a new Beaufort and Blenheim, and you think, well, give the Hampton some love, But I mean, we have a 148 scale Hampton. To be honest, I don't mind who makes a kit, whether it's Airfix, whether it's Tamiya, whether it's Hasegawa or ICM or Miniart or whatever. Today, if a company makes a good job of doing a kit, which most companies are capable of, not that they do, but they're capable of, then I'm happy. ICM have ticked a lot of the boxes because of that, I think, in recent years. But we'll see. Exactly. I'm agreed. We are getting so much. I mean, people complain a lot rather than being thankful for. I think that's just a trend that's gone on since probably the 50s, right? As the quality of life, the average quality of life goes up, people's expectations also go up, and humans are very, very adaptable. We're very good at adapting to new circumstances over long periods of time. But we always compare, right, in short spaces. So, we do have, I mean, even for me, if I think back to when I first came back to modeling in the 90s, we have so much more than then. And then was so much more than when I had as a child. So it's only got better for us, and yet people will still complain. They'll complain about this release. And I think, I mean, I've complained as well. I haven't complained, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I was disappointed in Airfix's releases last year because, again, they had set such a high standard, and it kind of felt like a fallow year for them last year. A little bit, not 100%. I mean, they still did some decent releases, but it didn't seem to have the big wow factor that prior years had. I think coming up with the Licensor coming, I think that's perhaps, they're going to try and turn it around a little bit, and I'm looking forward to that as well. So, but yeah, it does take a long time for a traditional company, especially, I think Airfix isn't a company, it's a brand within a company. Same as Revell isn't a company, it's a brand within a company, owned by an investment group. So those are, they have to be in advance, written into a 5-year plan, all of that kind of thing. A small family company can turn things around much quicker. That's just true in any industry, not just modeling. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I think as modelers, we have to look at, what is the overall spectrum of releases in a year, really, for ourselves, probably just for our own mental health. I think that's a healthy thing to do. But I agree, Mario, Revell and Airfix do have so much competition these days. And I've said again, it's a golden age of modeling for us in that we do have so much choice. I mean, if I wanted a full interior King Tiger kit in 1995, there weren't many options, right? Not many options. And the relative price that I have to pay was a lot higher than today. There are several manufacturers offering full interior King Tiger kits, ICM being one of them. So, we should be thankful, especially as the average price, standard of living has gone up, even with the current financial crisis. It isn't, we say current financial crisis, and it's not good, and some people are in real need. I don't want to diminish that, but it's not the Great Depression of the 1930s, right? It's not the austerity that was in the 70s. So sometimes we do need to kind of change our frame of reference, I think, a little bit. But competition is good, right? Competition helps people improve. Why does technology advance so much in war? Because two sides are competing to get the edge over each other, for their survival there. Companies are exactly the same. And that's how companies work, how capitalism works. So it's a good thing overall for us. Yes, the 90s was the time of resin kits, of dubious engineering quality. You wanted anything but a tiger or spit, indeed. Any new kit adds to the breadth and depth of the hobby should be welcomed and applauded. I agree. So, okay, guys. Oh, actually, that's an interesting. Could Airfix and Hornby survive if they parted? I think so. They would be different. I mean, it's difficult to know, Wayne, without, because obviously they have their financial reports every year. They're public, but they're not split into groups. So it's the overall profitability. If you're in the company, obviously you know which, as we would call them, verticals. So is it Scalextric? Is it Hornby? Is it Airfix and everything? You'd know how each of those are performing. And I'm sure Dale knows how the verticals are performing, how he may only know how Airfix is. I suspect not. Most companies like that tend to know how the other verticals are operating as well, even if it's just not in exact figures. They kind of know relative. And obviously, if it's a 12 million company and you're making 8 million, you're pulling the lion's, with a 50% profit margin, you're pulling the lion's share of it, right? Especially if you look at the end, it's like there's a big cost. And you're not making any money. It's like, well, somebody else is eating our 8 million profit, or 4 million profit. So Airfix, I think, probably could. Hornby, I think, probably could. Could all the other bits? I'm not sure. I think Hornby would have to change quite a bit as well, because again, it's under pressure as well. From other manufacturers elsewhere in the world. So, yeah. I hope when you say drop the Jag, I hope you don't mean as in rebranding in the same way that Jaguar did, because I don't want a self-destructing Airfix. Okay. Yes, austerity in the 70s, strikes, blackouts, and no work. Yes. I mean, every decade has its issues, right? I mean, the 90s was, for me personally, one of the best. I mean, I was kind of at university, so I was having a good time with things, and I got my first job, and I was making money and stuff. So it had some good bits of that. The world was pretty rough. I mean, there were quite a lot of wars in the 1990s. A lot of them we started, we as in kind of NATO ally group people. Some of them for good reasons, some of them for very spurious reasons. The 2000s got a little bit better, and we thought we were out of war and things were settling down, and then it came to today. And we're kind of doing the full circle again. So, yeah, it's but every decade has its issues, whether they be financial or political or whatever. But yeah, I really pity the English at the moment. You're really having it tough. Well, who would have been able to predict it, eh? That's sarcasm, obviously. A lot of our problems at the moment are self-inflicted and were completely predicted if you actually believe people that were rational back in 2016 rather than just slogans being shouted from buses. But hey ho, we get the politicians we deserve, not the ones we need, right? I think as well that that statement, loved Airfix 2023, loved ICM 2024, who will be my favorite in 2025. I think it is kind of waves, isn't it? And sometimes you get synergies where all the companies seem to do something really great all in one year, and that you think that's a stellar year. Others, like, you know, a company can do really well for a few years and then do, you know, like airfix last year, I felt like a bit of a fallow year, but then they sort of seem to tick up at the end. ICM, you know, really strong 2024. They had their issues, but which they covered, I must say, extremely well, you know, in terms of public, you know, releases and stuff. They didn't come out and say, oh, we're having real issues, which I think is it's one of the reasons I think that the English particularly, or British I should say, like have feel a kinship with the Ukraine, is because it's that blitz spirit, I'll call it. You know, it's the stiff upper lip. It's like we talk about our problems, but it's just like, here's a problem. They don't ask for sympathy. You know, it's not like, oh, you know, it's not a bleeding heart sort of situation. It's just like, look, this is a situation and we need help. You know, which is very much as it was in the war. You know, it's just like, we need help, but we're gonna stay. We're gonna keep fighting. We're gonna keep doing this. Don't say, you know, oh, I'm just hanging on by a thread in the back here. Gonna keep doing our normal thing. You know, keep calm, keep modeling. There we go. We should all move to Malta, Mario. We should all bring our stashes with us, because that would increase the amount of models in the island considerably, I feel. Although those of you thinking that's a good idea should also note that Malta gets incredibly hot. I mean, ridiculously hot. Like upper limits of human tolerance hot. Oh, yes. Five Eyes is not watching, said, I grew up doing the stupid hide under your desk if Russia nukes Canada. Because nothing can get through a school desk. Hard radiation, blast, thermal shock. No, school desk will save you from everything. We had a very cynical government campaign, which was basically, if we got the 4-minute warning. In the UK, there was the 4-minute warning. I've talked about it before, I think, where 4 minutes is how long it would take if nuclear war was declared for submarine-launched ballistic missiles to reach our shores. So 4-minute warning. If that happened, you were supposed to, and get this in 4 minutes, you were supposed to take the doors off your house indoors and form a shelter, you know, like with a triangle shelter against a wall. So here's your wall. So you prop your door up against it, form a shelter, put blankets over and stuff. In 4 minutes, I doubt I'd find a screwdriver in 4 minutes. Like, I would just die. You know, the best thing is to stand at your window or outside and hope the blast is close by. Hope that you're one of the ones incinerated instantly, and it's like that. You don't want to be 20 miles away and get 3rd-degree burns. You know, it's like best to be within a mile or so. But yeah, I mean, we had active discussions at school about what we would do with our last 4 minutes. You know, it's like, oh, I'd snog Jenny from class 3. You know, it's like that kind of thing. But which is very dark, very British. That is. Alrighty. Well, we have been going for just over an hour and a half, coming up to an hour and a half live. So I think that's a good time to stop today. I just wanted to go through the catalogue with kind of my thoughts and some of my feelings on it, sort of what I think it means for ICM, you know, and some of the reasons behind why I think are behind the schedule at ICM. I think, again, it's a solid release. It's got some things that we've been looking forward to for quite some time. You know, I think it was April that that ICM came on the channel and talked about it, and we knew that we were getting Hampton. So I expect it's going to be September, October, November. I think they said that last area, sort of end of Q3, beginning Q4, that we'll get the Hampton. So I hope the Henschels are earlier in the year to give us a bit of a tide over. The next thing you'll be seeing from ICM on the channel, I believe, will be the Black Hawk. So I'm going to be doing a full build of that. It looks really nice. I'm really looking forward to that Black Hawk, which, again, you know, I am not a helicopter person. As a helicopter person, I've built more helicopters in my modeling career since I started this channel than ever. So yeah, that'll be probably the next thing from ICM you'll see from me. I will be, I suppose I should say, progress on the app. So Casey and I have been working on, say Casey and I, like it's me doing all the work. Casey has been doing tons of work on putting more ICM paints in, and we now have a UI front end for the mixer in, which is great. So yeah, I kind of did a little bit of scripting and showed it to her, and she was just like, "Oh, I've already made a UI." It's like, okay, so my pathetic little bit of coding was kind of redundant, but no. So that's progressing on. So I'm confident that we will have something that's able to be turned into an app, in the next year, which is great. So the next paint mixing video will be coming out fairly shortly, because now I've had a chance to, now it gives me the opportunity to digitally mix the stuff before I physically mix, and I can compare that just as a checkpoint to make sure that those mixes are what I want, or tweak them. So that should be out fairly soon in the new year. Also, I'll be starting the beginner series in the new year. And what else do we have? Nothing I can think of off the top of my head. But lots in the background going on. So if you're interested in influencing that 25 kits for 25k, you need to be a channel member or a Patreon subscriber. Get onto the Discord, post in the channel your suggestions for what I should build, and I look forward to seeing you in the new year when we get there. Have a fantastic New Year's Eve if you're doing something special, or if not, raise a glass to the channel and to modeling, as I shall to you, and I will see you in whatever stream or video comes next. Okay, thanks everybody, have a great one. Cheers now.